So thank you all for coming to the Free Austin Tice press conference organized by Reporters Without Borders and Mark and Deborah Tice. We are holding this press conference today in order to publicize our input in the current White House hostage policy review, to appeal the White House to do everything it can to bring Austin Tice safely home, and to announce the Free Austin Tice campaign. My name is Delphine Algan, and I'm the US Director of Reporters Without Borders. As you know, Reporters Without Borders is the largest press freedom organization in the world with almost 30 years of experience. Thanks to our unique network of 150 local correspondents working in 130 countries, we are able to have a global impact by gathering and providing underground intelligence and assisting news providers all around the world every day. Reporters Without Borders has been working for decades all over the world with the families, employers, and governments of journalists held hostage and missing to provide underground information, contacts, media strategy advice, platforms for the support committees, and any logistic assistance needed according to each specific case. Since September 2012, I and my RSF colleagues have been assisting and advising Mark and Deborah Tice. As you all know, Austin Tice disappeared in Syria near Damascus in August 2012. His work was published by the McClatchy newspaper, the Washington Post, Associated Press, AFP, as well as CBS, NPR, and BBC. His reporting earned the 2012 George Polk Award for War Reporting and the 2012 McClatchy Newspaper President's Award. Austin is alive and is not held by ISIS, according to many diverse, credible sources. Several months ago, the White House ordered a review of the American government hostage policy. Mark and Deborah are taking part this week in meetings of this policy review. Reporters Without Borders team will meet the White House representative later this month. I would like now to let the Tice talk to us about their involvement in the White House policy review.
Yeah, thank you, Delphine. And thank all of you for being here. We very much appreciate it. We'd also like to thank Delphine and Reporters Without Borders for arranging this, and the National Press Club for hosting us here today. Our number one focus is to bring our son Austin home safely. In the process of working and doing all we can to make that happen and interacting with the United States government to help make that happen, we've experienced issues around how our government interacts with families and how they pursue these cases. So we were very gratified when President Obama directed a review of U.S. hostage policy, which clearly, in our opinion, does need significant improvement. And we're very pleased to have an opportunity to participate in the policy review. In our first meeting with the policy review team, which took place this past Monday, we urged the team to draft a policy recommendation that would accomplish several things. One, that would create a single point of accountability responsible to the President with the singular goal of the soonest, safest return of any American hostage. Secondly,
I'm going to jump in. I'd just like to say it's appalling to us that no such entity currently exists in the United States government. There is no agency, no person solely committed to the singular objective of the safe return of the hostage. that has to change.
Yeah, and we're happy to take questions about that and discuss that point, certainly. We also believe that any change or improvement in this policy should increase the collaboration and improve the collaboration and information sharing both among United States agencies and departments and resources that work on hostage issues, and between those agencies and the families of hostages. And finally, we believe it's important that the policy address protecting the hostage themselves. That is, protecting their identity, protecting their assets and resources. This is something that, regardless of what kind of hostage situation exists, whether it's a businessman, a tourist, a journalist in a conflict zone, all families and all of those individuals will face some of the same challenges that we have in trying to make sure that when Austin comes back, he has a life to come back to and not just a huge pile of problems. So, Debbie, you want to add anything?
Let's see, you covered that pretty well. I thought that in this 21st century and being the mother of 20-somethings, that you all might appreciate a Twitter version of what we're asking for in this hostage policy review. So I would say that it is a single primary objective of the soonest and safest return of the hostage, and that this policy be flexible and pragmatic. So we're very eager to elaborate on some of those points.
Yeah, and I would want to add just one more thing, is that we believe that the existing resources that are now being applied towards hostage situations that the United States government has are sufficient. However, they can be used in a way that's far more efficient, effective, and hopefully successful with a new policy that provides for some of the points that we just discussed. So, Delphine?
Yeah, no, I think it's a way to sum up your main recommendation is improvement of the internal communication, improvement of the external communication, and then a better protection of the assets and online identity of the hostages. And as you know, Reporters Without Borders supports strongly your recommendation. And at Reporters Without Borders, we actually have additional recommendation for this White House policy review, especially based on the recent failed rescue attempts. We urge the U.S. administration to examine all the alternatives to the military option. And because previous releases support the idea that negotiation can be envisaged with captors, regardless of a policy of not payment of ransom. So that's maybe one point which is not concerning so much Austin's, but that is one definitely a recommendation that we are really pushing during this White House policy review. I would like maybe now talk a little bit about the Free Austin Ties campaign. So we have been working with you since September 2012, and a few months ago you asked Reporters Without Borders to help you to raise awareness about Austin's situation. So Reporters Without Borders partnered with the ad agency J. Walter Thompson in New York, who generously accepted to develop pro bono the Free Austin Ties campaign around the idea of being blindfolded when journalists are missing. The blindfold symbols resonates with Austin unanswered kidnapping, but also with the fact that when a journalist is missing, we are ourselves blindfolded because we are ourselves deprived of information. So with the Free Austin Ties campaign, Reporters Without Borders invites all American media and citizens to join your appeal to bring Austin safely home. I'm very proud to say that we have already an amazing number of media partners. Gannett, USA Today, Global Post, Hearst Newspaper Group, Talk Radio News Service, the Atlantic Media Group, the McClatchy newspaper, as well as the National Press Club and the museums are already official partners of the Free Austin Ties campaign. We invite any other American media to join the Free Austin Ties campaign. Starting the week of February 16th, Free Austin Ties digital banners will be published pro bono on more than 267 news websites all across the US. Such a collective mobilization of the American media to raise awareness about a missing American journalist is unheard of. This is a first in the US media history. We cannot thank enough all our media partners who offered millions of digital impressions for the Free Austin Ties campaign banners. And hopefully, more media partners will be announced soon. I just want to explain a little bit how it works and how each citizen can take part in this campaign and help to raise awareness about Austin Ties. So first, anybody can sign the petition addressed to President Obama, urging him to do everything he can to bring Austin back safe home. You can find the petition at freeaustinties.rsf.org. But also, every citizen can take part in the blindfold pledge. Using this blindfold symbol, we invite anybody to take a picture of themselves blindfolded and post it on their social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, to tell the world that without journalists, we are all deprived of information. We are all blindfolded. I really invite you to share this hashtag and this symbol with us to help us to raise awareness about Austin. Now I will just go back to you, Mark and Deborah, to let us know why you think this campaign is so crucial and helpful and why launch it now.
Okay. When Austin first went missing, there's a question that you face. Should there be a blackout or should you press? And I would say that your intuition, if your child is missing, is to ask everyone to help you find them. And to suppress that may not be the right answer. And I think when you begin to think about suppressing that, you need to have a very clear understanding of why you would do that. We didn't really have that decision because Austin's case was made public about a week and a half after he went missing by the Czech ambassador in Damascus. But since then, we've been a little bit louder and a little bit quieter at various times. But after almost 2.5 years, which will be February 14th, if Austin's not home before then, we feel like we need to let everybody know that our son is missing, and will you please help us get him home? Will you please help us walk this long shoreline of tiny pebbles, and we're trying to turn over every one to find our son? Will you help us? Will you write our president and say, do everything you can to bring this American home? And it's a little bit too late, not too late, but such a long time. But we can't go back and redo it, so we're starting now and we're going loud. And we really appreciate your participation.
Yeah, and I would just add that another thing that we've learned, and this is kind of intuitive, that everybody works harder with a little encouragement, right? And we believe we've learned very clearly that the same thing is true of governments. So, we're hoping through this campaign to leverage our voice of encouragement to the United States government, frankly, to anyone else that has the ability to help us bring Austin safely home. And that's really what it's all about, is to, multiply our voice, amplify our voice, and we hope that as many people as hear this message or see the banners will join us in doing that, because we think that with encouragement comes results.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. I think it's time to open the floor to questions. So I will ask the journalists who want to ask questions to come to the stand-up mic here and to introduce themselves briefly and ask brief questions. Thank you.
Yes, hi, Rob Lieber from AFP. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your efforts. I'm just wondering, the circumstances of Austin are still not very clear, and I'm wondering, over these, 25 months or so, have you had different kinds of information that tell you anything about his circumstances, and are there things and channels that you are working on that you can't tell us, that you can, that you're working in areas that you might not be able to tell us about?
Yeah, thank you. And yes, you're right. The exact circumstances of Austin's captivity are still, to a large degree, a mystery to us. We don't know details and specifics. And yes, you know, we are working channels. We've made relationships and contact with people in the region, with officials of various governments, with a number of different kinds of people that we felt like might be helpful. And we do pursue those. We have heard, and we do get information from time to time from sources that we believe are credible, that Austin is alive, Austin is reasonably well treated, that we need to be patient, that there's a general confidence that he will come home safely. You can imagine how enormously frustrating it is for us to hear these words, and as soon as we try to push back and get detail about, you know, if you can tell us that, then certainly why don't you just hand him the phone and let us talk to him, right? But, you know, walls come up. It's a very complex situation that that he finds himself in the middle of. So that's about as much detail as we have.
Right.
But we have, you know, utterly undiminished hope and belief that he will come home safely.
Welcome home safely.
Mr. and Mrs. Tice, thank you so much for doing this. Mrs. Tice, it's good to see you again. I spoke with you yesterday. I just had a couple of follow-up questions for you. I just wanted to ask again, how many days has it been since Austin has been missing? And how many days has it been since Austin has been missing? And what credible sources can you speak about that are you're sure that he's not captured by ISIS?
Okay, today it's 906 days that since Austin went missing. And, what was the second question?
Is he detained by ISIS?
How are we sure that he's not detained by ISIS?
We are sure that he is not.
And the U.S. government is sure that he is not.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, honestly, part of that confidence comes from the fact that there have been a number of Western hostages released from ISIS, and they have shared information previously about who else, what other Westerners were being held. Austin is not among those.
Okay. And have you made, on an ongoing basis, have you continued to make direct appeals to the United States government in addition to this campaign that you have going on, to the FBI, I know you spoke with the National Counterterrorism Center on Monday. Have you continued to make those direct appeals?
Well, anytime that we're in DC, our phone just becomes crowded with meetings because we are the pavement pounders and the door knockers, and we will be back. And graciously, the doors open for us. And that was one thing that I feel we didn't say. This meeting that we had Monday morning was 3.5 hours. We feel that we were intensely listened to. There were some points that I made. I'm a point person. that we were not volunteering for this hostage policy, that we are investing our time with a full expectation of a return on our investment. And that we expect that this is not a one-off. We want to be involved. This is the beginning of the process. And we want process and progress reports. We want to share process and progress reports with you. And so we expect to be called back again when things begin to take a little bit more shape. And if we are not called back, then we will just invite ourselves, because
So-
imposition is just one skill that I offer.
So, Deborah and Mark, actually, it's a good point. When I would like you to maybe give information and share information on when is supposed to this policy review to finish, when will the results be announced, and when the new policy will be implemented.
Yeah, but can I say something? I just wanted to go back to the question, because ask, do we continue to reach out to various agencies, the FBI, State Department, and so forth? And I wouldn't characterize it that way, because it's not reaching out. We have been working with and collaborating with a number of different government agencies, all of those that are involved in hostage cases, right? And frankly, it's that experience that informs us as to where there are gaps and problems and inefficiencies in how those agencies deal with, hostage situations. There are many sincere, committed people in every agency that really want to bring Austin home quickly. Unfortunately, the institutions, the policies, the structures that they have to work within, in some cases, make it almost impossible for them to work effectively together and effectively for Austin's return. So, Delphine, you asked a question. Our understanding at this is that this policy review is scheduled to be completed over the course of this spring.
End of March.
Yeah, roughly end of March, something like that. We have asked, to be as involved as we possibly can in terms of, what decisions are being made, what recommendations are being put together. It remains to be seen exactly, how much information we receive and how much is shared with us. But as Debbie said, I would say, I guess, we feel like we need to hold the government and the review team accountable for delivering what they say they're going to deliver. And, if we get to the point where we're feeling like things are lagging or not happening, we'll be happy to tell you about it.
And also, I want to answer that question as far as, are we reaching out to agencies? Are we talking to government? This is a key point of this hostage policy. We are mom and dad. We are not government officials. We have no legal training. And so for us to be expected to take this on is a hugely unreasonable expectation. We've been really fortunate in the support that we've had and the connections we've made. I wouldn't expect that to be universal to every hostage family. And so that's not a realistic expectation. The family should be able to rely on the government to put things in motion and go and bring their loved ones safely home. That should not fall on the family.
Yeah, hi. Are you sure your son isn't being held by our own government? There are a lot of people who wonder what happened to their loved ones because the CIA swept them off the street and put them in some secret prison.
Yeah. We have absolutely no reason to think that might be the case. We know where Austin was roughly, or fairly precisely when he was last seen, and given the circumstances of that location, the parties in the neighborhood and the people involved, we believe it is a Syrian entity of one type or of another that's holding him. And no, we don't have any reason to believe that the United States government has.
So I think it's interesting to share what our belief and what we know. We know it's not a ransom case. We know that no concession requests have been made for his release. So I think it's important to understand who can help to make Austin safe return happen as soon as possible. And I think you put on the main target, the U.S. government and the Syrian government.
That's correct.
So I think it's important information to highlight again.
Hey, Adam Goldman, Washington Post. You talked about secrecy earlier, and what happened to your son was disclosed by the Czech ambassador. But during this time period where many of these hostages were taken in Syria, there's been enormous pressure put on the media to keep some of these names secret. It shows it sort of goes against our, or at least our bent to be transparent, right?
Right.
I don't think there's any evidence that suggests that revealing the names of these hostages could put them in graver danger. They're in the gravest possible danger. Where do you come down on that? On should the policy address that? Should the names of people who have been taken, should they be revealed? You might make the argument. You might make the argument if the media had been more transparent about what it knew, some of these young men and women wouldn't have walked into these situations in Syria.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that you're going to hear from both of us on that question. So I just took the mic so I could get my word in. First of all, anybody that says, any policy that says that in every case this is what you should do is a flawed policy. Again, we didn't have the opportunity to choose a blackout. And a lot of people that we know have felt the same pressure that you say you feel in the press to have a blackout. There may very well be times when a blackout of information and keeping names and situations, under wraps is useful and valuable. Depends entirely on the circumstance, right? I guess my feeling, and I'll let Debbie share hers, is that either making any single action a requirement or taking any potential action off the table as an option is a mistake. That no situation is identical. No two situations are identical. And pragmatism and flexibility are what is required with knowledge, right? Debbie?
Well, this just brings up a key important point of what we're pressing in this hostage policy review. We've been told that there are 70 to 80 people working on this within the government. And one of the outcomes that we're aiming for is that when a person is taken hostage, we're going to look at that individual, the political situation, whether it's a government actor or a non-government actor, and putting all this information together, which agency is the agency that should take the lead? Even that decision should be flexible to the situation. Should it be held close or should we go loud? That's going to be unique to the situation. Certainly over the past 906 days, Mark and I have changed the volume quite a bit, depending on what's going on, depending on how willing the media was to speak with us. So, we cannot overemphasize that every single detail needs to be unique to each unique situation. And our government needs to show that it is gifted and talented, that it is capable of analyzing an individual situation and responding intelligently, effectively, and efficiently. Because it's only over here in the rule box that people need these black and white guidelines, but we want to be the people that are outside the box. And so we don't have a position on blackout. We don't have a position on ransom. We have a position on the safest and soonest return of every American held against their will.
I just want to add maybe some elements based on Reporters Without Borders experience over these last 30 years. When the first time we're in contact with the family of hostage, it's always one of the first questions. Should we keep silent or should we talk loud? Again, it always depends of each situation. Most of the time, if the person was just kidnapped recently, we wait to know if there's captors communications or demands, and of course we work accordingly with the governments, and we will always respect the wish of the family. When times goes, if in most of the case when there's no clear information, then there's most of the time a decision to go public, to reach for information and to increase the public awareness and pressure. And it has nothing to do with, but the other point I wanted to make is that, again, it depends of each case, and it's not a full decision to say we have to talk about each hostage. It's really an individual decision. Please.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Marmon. I'm with ABC News. My question is regarding that. What made you guys decide to go from staying quiet and private to publicizing your situation?
Well, and I think we touched on this earlier, is we've come to a realization that in Austin's situation, we really have two entities that are best placed to help bring him home safely. One's the United States government, one is the Syrian government. And we've learned that, like I said, governments, like people, respond to encouragement. And so, being quiet and working entirely behind the scenes, it's easy for the priority of your issue to get lost. Look, there's a lot going on. Austin's case isn't the only thing that the United States government, or for that matter, the Syrian government, is dealing with. But we've come to the place where amplifying our voice and making as many people as possible aware so that they can urge our government, at least, to continue working, be flexible, do everything they can, is a thing that needs to be done. So it's just really been an evolution of thinking.
I think under this question, there's often the question like, aren't you afraid it could hurt Austin? I just want to refer to all the testimonies I personally received and my colleagues received from journalists released from jail, from journalists released after a hostage situation. They are always telling us, you don't know how much it was important for us to know that we were not forgotten. And I'm talking about journalists who were detained in Iran, journalists who were held hostage by ISIS. It's also important for them and for their captors to know that this case is really a priority.
And my second question is, I know that you spoke that there was no ransom, there's been no ransom request or anything, but do you know anything about the circumstances that would warrant Austin's release, or have you been given any information from any entity?
No. We've had no request at all, no contact at all. We don't have any idea what's going to be the golden key that opens the crystal door.
Thank you.
Hey there, Kevin Diaz, Houston Chronicle. We've met. Just one quick question. You said you met with the review committee folks on Monday. Do they know that you're sort of coming out with this public campaign now, and are they on board with it? Or did they give you any resistance and ask you, no, please don't do this?
I am so excited excited, so happy, so delighted to be able to tell you that we were encouraged to speak with you, and they did not put any muzzle on us whatsoever. I think they were not willing to take that fight on, frankly. So no, we were actually, they were aware of this. I want to be very clear. Mark and I want to keep you guys updated on the process and progress of this policy review. And to our government, to those working on the policy review, we want to be effective and not offensive. We are committed to that. But we do want to keep you updated, and we want to be updated because this really is an important effort. Thank you so much for asking, Kevin.
Hi, Mark and Deborah. My name is Jeremy Young. I'm a journalist with Al Jazeera. Thanks a lot for being here today. Deborah, I know you said that you don't have a ransom policy, but I'm curious whether you think that the U.S. government should consider paying for the release of hostages in certain circumstances.
He asked you.
All right.
But I'll
Well,
answer you.
I think it's unusual for a government to pay ransom. And I don't think we're going to see a change in that. And I think, again, I would say, you know, we have a program in our schools for the gifted and talented. We want our government to be that student in the room.
The creative one.
And we want to be clever and creative and responsive. And we want to circle back to that #1 objective, safest and soonest. What do we need to do, and how can we do it to get our people safely home as soon as possible? Every decision, every question runs back to that objective. Every time, all the time.
Yeah, and if I may, I'm going to borrow a line, I think it came from Delphine.
Yes, our quote from
But there's a lot of room between dialogue and ransom, all right? And the other thing I would add is that, you know, anyone that's involved in negotiations, whether they're business negotiations or, you know, other, it's typically a mistake to take anything off the table from the beginning. It doesn't mean that you're going to play that particular card.
But you always want a full deck.
But you always want a full deck. That's very good. Thank you. Thank you. But
So, and just on that, I think it has been very clear that the U.S. government will not change its no ransom policy, and it's not at all what we are asking. We are really just asking that based on the recent failed attempts to rescue journalists, it seemed that they've preferred the military option to all others. And we're just urging the US government to accept to negotiate with the captors and to consider all the options to assure and the safe release of the hostages.
I mean, one issue that we have faced with Austin being in Syria, we have a State Department whose purpose is diplomatic relations. How do you have diplomatic relations with someone you won't speak to? Draw me a picture. How does that work?
Real quick.
Can you come to the
Sorry.
mic?
I talked to a lot of the families of hostages, dating back to Iraq with Zarqawi, just not what's happened recently. So a lot of frustration with the State Department, and that seems to resonate among many people. We don't have an embassy there. We can't help you. Sorry. Is that? I mean, can you point to one entity that has been helpful in all of this, or one that particularly?
Well, ironically, State is the entity that has been our closest partner in this. This does not alleviate my personal frustration, my personal philosophy that the person I have the biggest problem with is the person I need to speak the loudest with. This is the person I must engage with, because how can we resolve our problem if we're not talking to each other? If that moves to screaming, I can work with that. you know, but we've got to push through until we reach a mutual resolution. And you know, and I know, and history tells us, this conflict that we're in right now in Syria is going to end at a table with pens, with people talking to each other. So can we just not have one more dead body? Can we just cut to that today, now? Why not? Let's go there. Let's talk.
Blanquita Cullum, you said that there were like 80 people that were working on this. Did I get that number right? Do they talk to each other? Are they cooperating with each other? I mean, is it like, you know, they're in a void and one person will tell somebody else something a week later or something?
Well, okay, our understanding, and we've just, as of this week, you know, Monday was our first and only meeting with this team. So
after 906 days, that's the first
okay, well,
meeting?
no,
About the policy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just to be clear.
There's 70 to 80 entities involved in the hostage policy review.
Right,
I
right.
wanna,
This
make
policy
that
review
clear.
that the president ordered, a team has been created, led out of the National Counterterrorism Center, consisting of 70 to 80 individuals representing all different agencies, including the intelligence community, as we understand it. They are all, yes, working together full-time, reviewing this policy and to come up with improved recommendations, right? So that's one thing. The thing, in terms of lack of communication that you're talking about, is, yes, amongst the agencies, the FBI, the intelligence community, the State Department, elements of the White House, information sharing is very poor. And I'm not telling any secrets because people at each of those agencies will tell us, have told us the same thing. That's something that needs to be fixed when an interagency group is working on a common problem. There need to be clear driving lanes, who's responsible for what, who's in charge, who's accountable.
So it's
That
not
doesn't
there
exist.
yet, is what you're saying?
It's not there yet.
All right,
yes.
so in other words, what I'm hearing you, please correct me if I'm wrong. You're here, your son's been there 906 days. You get a sense that they don't understand that these men and women who are being held hostage are facing time-sensitive issues like their life? Do you feel that that's not being focused upon if they're not communicating well?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
In other words,
Say
if
again.
they're not communicating and they're taking time and there's a lapse in response, do they understand? Do you think that they understand the time sensitivity of the peril of these people that are being held hostage?
So do you think it's a priority for you?
Well,
for them?
This is part of the problem. Each one of these agencies has their own agenda. Each one of these agencies has their own objective. The appalling thing that we have learned is that absence of any entity that has the singular objective of the safest and soonest return. I find that very hard to take. Very hard to take.
So I think we will wrap up this conference. I want to thank you all for coming here, and I just want to make an announcement, and then I will just let Deborah and Mark make a final statement. Next week on February 11th at 3 p.m. in the same room, Reporters Without Borders will organize a press conference for the release of the 2015 World Press Freedom Index. And we will have as a guest speaker Ali Rezaian, the brother of Jason Rezaian, the Washington Post bureau chief in Tehran, and Raza Rumi, a Pakistani journalist. And meanwhile, I really invite you to tweet, Facebook, Instagram, and write about Free Austin Tice. Thank you very much. And I will just let Deborah and Mark maybe give a last message that maybe you want to address to Austin captors, to the governments, and to Austin.
Well, I guess, you know, actually, I'd like to just give a message to anyone that's hearing this or seeing this, and again, ask for their support for us in our efforts to bring Austin home, ask them to participate, ask you to participate in the Free Austin Ties campaign to increase the level of encouragement that our government has to act to bring Austin home. If Austin's listening to this, he knows we love him and that we're doing everything we can to bring him home. Debbie?
That's good.
Yep.
And to our president and to the Syrian government, we ask that you keep your word to us and work diligently to bring our son safely home. Thank you all so very much for coming today. Thank you. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice, yeah, I've seen your byline.